Welcome back to the programme. Coming up to 2 o'clock here on Friday, 4th of July, in the Radio Northwich studio. Mike Cooksley bringing you the Northwich Now programme. Well, back in 2022, 3 years ago, people held a peaceful protest at Pickmere Lake to block access to contractors after Pickmere Parish Council had announced plans to build a fence around the open space. Villagers had suffered at the hands of visitors to the lake with antisocial behaviour and inconsiderate parking. The Safe Pickmere Lake group said they were acting to protect their rights to access to the water and have, ever since really been ensuring that the Parish Council doesn't carry out its threat. However, since then, a new Parish Council has been voted in and there's a new chairman, Ewan Campbell, who was elected. Unfortunately, the problems with visitors inundating the village have continued this year, and I've got Ewan here in the Radio Northwich studio. Ewan, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mike.
Lovely to have you back. Seems ages since you were in here when we originally started things off. I wonder if you could remind the listeners the circumstances that have brought people initially a few years ago to the point of protesting against the parish council.
So originally, when I first came in, obviously I was on the parish council, and the council decided to build a fence around the lake at Pickmere, basically to try and help deal with the antisocial behaviour that they were experiencing at the lake. As you'll probably remember, that included defecation on the lake, people lighting barbecues around the lake. We had a couple of groups of school children who came down to disagree around the lake. Probably one of the biggest problems we have is the antisocial parking that we get all around the lake, particularly on a sunny day when people come down and basically just park anywhere.
Right, let's just get this right. On a sunny day then, people quite naturally would want to enjoy the serenity of Pickmere Lake. It's been like that ever since I was a kid. I can remember going down on my bike and paddling in Pickmere Lake. So inevitably, once the nice weather gets here, people want to enjoy the lake. But unfortunately, the village is quite small, isn't it? It's not a very big village, and the road leading up to the lake is just quite a small road, isn't it? So what are the problems that you come across?
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, a lot of the roads in Pickmere are dead ends. So the roads around the lake, so Mere Lane and Clover Drive, there's only one way in and one way out. I think one of the issues that we've had recently is that probably like places like Barcelona and Venice, we're just suffering from increased over-tourism.
Okay.
And more people are coming, and I think some of that's driven by social media. We do have a business in Pickmere who have sort of marketed the lake as a country park, which quite clearly it's not. And if you go on to Instagram and type in Pickmere Lake, you have lots of influencers who come down, take pictures by the lake, and that encourages other people to come. And what we found is we just get more and more people going to the lake, and we have no facilities there. There are no toilets. There's nowhere to eat or have a coffee. And basically on a sunny day, there's really hundreds of people. So you're not getting the serenity of Pickmere Lake anymore. You're just sharing it with hundreds and hundreds of people on a sunny day. And for me, I don't think that's attractive. But for the villagers, it's just what we have to suffer as a result of that. And we have a number of people who are, I guess, elderly and may need to get the emergency services. A number of instances where a fire engine or an ambulance couldn't get down.
Really? Things that bad?
Yeah. We had a guy some years ago down, but he was working on his car and it fell on him. And the fire brigade couldn't get down the road to get to him, so they had to run down from the top of the road because all the cars were blocking it. We've had, unfortunately, some deaths on the lake, and when the ambulance service and the fire and rescue tried to get access to Pickmere Lake through our famous black gates, it was impossible because people had parked in front of them. So it's not only the inconvenience, but there is a serious risk to people's lives.
Yeah, indeed. And as you quite rightly say, people probably don't understand, but as you say, you have these influence on social media, and the more that Pickmere gets advertised as a lovely place to go and spend your sunny summer weekend, but as you say, the opposite actually happens, because you've got that many people there spoiling the whole ambience of the place. But particularly, as you say, the parking problem is a major issue. I know originally that the original parish council, and you weren't involved in that, they came up with the idea, good or bad, that what they would do to stop all this would be to fence off the actual lake itself. So it would actually prevent people from actually utilising the facilities of the lake itself. That in itself, they assumed, would put people off coming, because if you can't use the lake, no point in going to Pickmere, is there? That obviously was quashed, quite understandably, I think, by the people who the wild water swimmers and what have you, quite understandably. Plus the fact what an eyesore, an 8-foot fence would have been all the way round Pickmere Lake. You were one of the, if I may say, you were one of the key protagonists regarding that, and you attended the various parish council meetings, to the extent that I remember you coming into one programme and I said to you jokingly, well, why don't you stand for the parish council? And here you are, you're now the chairman of the parish council. What this must be on your agenda every time you meet, I would assume. Are there really, being quite honest, are there any solutions that you think are there to prevent the continued problems that you've got at Pickmere?
I mean, it certainly is something that occupies the parish council's agenda at every meeting. I think there are. So we've been very busy since the parish council changed, working with, for example, Cheshire East highways. So we're just going through a traffic change for yellow lines. So a lot of the roads in Pickmere were built after, some of your listeners will remember the fun fair. So during the time of the fun fair, there were yellow lines around the roads that existed. Yeah. A lot of the new development don't have those yellow lines because they didn't exist. So Cheshire East have just finished an informal consultation with the residents of Pickmere, Wincham, and other bodies who are interested, like the police. And so what we're hoping is that there'll be a formal consultation on double yellow lines throughout Pickmere, particularly in the areas where we get a lot of antisocial parking. We've developed a very good relationship with the Police and Crime Commissioner for Cheshire,
Dan Price.
Yeah. And the local police across Cheshire. We get a lot of support from obviously our local Knutsford Police, Macclesfield, Wilmslow. At the moment, the police come to Pickmere every day.
Do they?
They do. As you've probably seen in the papers, there's been a lot of enforcement by both police and by Cheshire East enforcement on parking. A large number of cars have been towed for blocking the highway.
Have they? I know quite a few cars that had fixed penalty notices put on them because of inconsiderate parking on footpaths and what have you. So quite a few have been towed away, have they?
Yeah. So right. I think on the last sunny weekend, the police issued 20 parking fines, but also towed 3 cars.
Okay.
Blocking the area around the lake. I mean, one of them actually was an unfortunate delivery driver who a group of young lads had decided they would like pizza at the lake. The delivery driver turned up, didn't have anywhere to park, so he just parked in the middle of the road. Unfortunately for him, at the same time as the police arrived, and it turned out that he was working as a delivery driver, didn't have insurance for business use. So his car was towed for blocking the area, not having the correct insurance. So I think the police are helping out with that. We are in discussions with Cheshire East to get a public space protection order, which will assist the police in dealing with antisocial behaviour, and we're collecting data and all these tickets.
Sorry, what does that amount to?
So a public space protection order is a mechanism where it covers things that aren't normally covered by a law. So things like if people light barbecues on our land because of the fire risk, that would be covered. It's often, Cheshire West have one for all their public spaces.
They do for drinking in public spaces.
So again, intoxication would be covered because there's not a specific law that covers intoxication.
Okay.
But you can take that under a public space protection. So we just make a list of antisocial behaviours that wouldn't be allowed at Pickmere Lake, and that gives the police the power to deal with it very quickly, which they don't have at the moment.
Right, so you're obviously getting support from Cheshire East Council and from the police force. The discussions you're having with Cheshire East Council, I assume, and I think you've touched on this, I assume that with regard to putting yellow lines, no parking areas and what have you, I assume that Cheshire East Council would have to consult with the local villages themselves with regarding this, yeah?
Yes, so we have gone through the informal consultation.
Okay.
And currently they've taken the feedback from local residents, not just in Pickmere but around the lake. As you probably remember, there's 4 parishes that border the lake.
Correct.
We have two sections of Cheshire Police, Northwich and Knutsford, and so they're consulted with that, and then there is a formal process they go through which takes, I think, 21 days from memory.
Okay.
Could be wrong. And that we're hoping will kick off in August. But obviously, normally changes of this sort of small. In the case of Pickmere, this is a large operation, a large amount of yellow paint is going to be used. Yeah. And so the process is dragging on longer than we'd hoped. Yeah. We had originally hoped that we'd have this all in place by Easter of this year. Of course. But as we know with public bodies, it's not as easy as we always think. Yeah. So I think that's where we're going with the with that process. But they will have the formal consultation, and everybody, any member of the public, will be able to input on that process.
Somebody's texted in. They said, "Who owns the lake?"
So the lake is. So this is a very interesting question. So obviously, nobody owns water. The land around the lake is owned by different private individuals. I think most of them are farmers, plus Pickmere Parish Council own the section that obviously we look after, and then all the landowners own the land under the lake.
Okay, right. Sounds a bit technical. We'll go.
I've learned so much about.
Yeah. What about public right? Are there public rights of way in and around the lake? Does that pose other issues?
So one of our issues is that we have a footpath, public footpath, that goes through our section of the lake. So obviously a public footpath, you can't stop the public from using that. Except in emergency. I mean, interestingly, we did have recently where we had trouble with a couple of our trees, and we had to apply to Cheshire East to close the footpath. The duty came down because they understood how dangerous trees could be, and I think unfortunately we've seen in the news how dangerous trees are.
Oh, absolutely.
They blocked off the footpath, put up notices, and within half an hour they've been ripped down by people who felt that we were just trying to stop people accessing the area, which is concerning. So if you have children in the village who were unaware that the path had been opened, then that would be could be quite devastating. So we have got some leeway to close it for emergencies, but not for the general public. So that is a big problem to us. The other issue we have is obviously, we mentioned swimmers. What is interesting about Pickmere Lake is the only water sport that's allowed on Pickmere Lake is water skiing. Everything else is not allowed, and we don't, as a council, allow people to swim off our land. So again, when people go into the lake, you have to wonder.
That sounds bizarre. The water skiing is allowed, and yet just ordinary swimming or paddle boats or what have you, isn't allowed.
And it comes from again, it all gets technical, but there are the Welsh water would be considered common land. But that confuses people because that doesn't mean everyone has access to it. It means there are rights in common to the water. And the only rights in common to the water, which are listed on Cheshire East, are water skiing.
Gosh. Well, I find that, I'm sure a lot of our listeners would find that as amazing. So hopefully, once you're able, or Cheshire East Council are able to put into place the parking restrictions and what have you, do you feel the problem will be alleviated, or do you think there's a possibility? Obviously, they're not in place at the moment. So and from the newspaper reports, from what you've said, during the recent hot spells, there have been a lot of fixed penalty notices in cars towed away. People just don't seem to have got the message, do they? To be quite honest with you, because there is still antisocial behaviour, antisocial parking, and what have you. It does shake your faith in the public at times, when these things happen. And I know this has been going on for many, many years, but in particular, it's become a damn sight more of a problem over the last few years. Are you hopeful that once the parking restrictions have been put in place, that the police will then be able to enforce the no parking policy, and that will alleviate the problems for the inhabitants of Pickmere?
Yeah, I certainly do. I think, so at the moment we have single yellow lines. When we went through the consultation, the police were very keen to have double yellow lines. And the reason for that is that at the moment, if you park on a pavement, for example, and you block it to a wheelchair or a pram, which happens all the time, then that is a ticketable offence by the police. It's not a ticketable offence by Cheshire East enforcement. Once you have double yellow lines, both groups can then enforce the law.
Oh, right.
Almost immediately. And one of the problems we also have is, more and more we're seeing. We used to always have issues at the weekend. Now we're getting issues on a sunny Monday or Fridays. Obviously, everyone's working from home, I guess, but Fridays
flexi working, isn't it?
Yeah. Is a big issue, and just having those double yellow lines will help the enforcement groups, deal with the problem. And I think when it comes to towing, there's a high bar before the police will tow a car.
Right.
Currently, when there's double yellow lines, that bar is lowered, and we feel that we'll get much more ticketing. I think one of the problems that people said, I saw in one of the articles that someone said, the yellow tickets don't seem to be, or the yellow parking tickets don't seem to be working. But I think they do. The problem is that when those people parked, they didn't have a ticket. When they come back, they've got a ticket, and then some people came back and found that their car wasn't there. I think that will have a long-term effect on those people, and other people who see the tickets, will either on the day not park or will maybe not come back. And certainly what we've seen is when the police have come down in force, there's sort of like a lull after that, whereas the problem seems to diminish, I wouldn't say it goes away. So I think, once we've got our yellow lines, it will improve it. Do I think it's going to eradicate it? I don't think so. But I think, personally, one of the things I found out is a lot of the schools, when they come to the end of the year, Pickmere has now become the destination for kids out of school. In fact, my own children finished school today, and I found out that they were planning to come and have a barbecue at the lake. Now, they're not going to have a barbecue at the lake because I was able to, as a parent, educate them that wasn't acceptable. And I think, if I had a message for your listeners, I think, if you have children who are at school, and you find out they're coming to Pickmere Lake,
Yeah.
I would discourage them.
Okay.
There are a number of reasons for that. We have large groups of boys walking around the lake. Get 2 schools.
Yeah,
on the lake.
Yeah, of course.
That's probably a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And I also say, these influencers come down and take their pictures of Pickmere Lake. I've seen a couple of them. They're only there for about 60 seconds.
Yeah.
They're not really there. And I think some of those children, school children, are coming down because they think they're going to meet these people.
Somebody's texted in here, quite an interesting one. And I know this was mentioned some time ago. Is there no facility to develop a car park?
So,
if the parish council were to run a car park and charge for parking, you'd make a fortune, wouldn't you?
and it is something that has been suggested. I think that there are a number of issues with having a car park. I don't know if you remember the lake, but there's a flat area at the top. I think the issues are around, there's a flat area and there's a big hill.
Yeah.
So you've got issues with cars rolling down the hill into hundreds of people. So I think it's not something that as a parish council we have the facilities to do. We certainly don't have the money to build a car park. We've got a precept of 19,000, and I don't think it would be the solution. But I have to say, I'm speaking here. This is me speaking. It's not the parish council.
And there's the issue of manning it, of course, and what have you, insurance, all that kind of thing. Yeah, I quite understand that. What at first seems to be a bit of a solution could probably be an absolute nightmare.
To be fair, we do have a car park which we've had to shut because of the so we had people that were getting locked in, so the car park shut at 8 p.m.
Yeah.
They were then going around knocking on people's houses round at the lake, thinking that everyone must know, or everyone must have a key to the lake to open them out. We had one person who they were a builder, they had tools in the back, they just cut open the gate and drove out. So, it's not as simple as just doing a car park, but it's something that's been considered, and I never say never, but I think going forward as a parish council, we sort of want to learn the lessons of the past, and I think what we will be doing is talking to our residents. There are a number of options that we can look at. We've started some, and see what the residents want and what would work for them. But currently, although it seems like a simple idea, I'm personally not sure that the car park ones are going to.
But the long-term solution, by the sounds of it, is going to be parking restrictions in and around the roads that are affected by antisocial parking and what have you there. And really, I suppose, what we need to do today is to give a warning out to people that inconsiderate parking will not be tolerated at Pickmere. That if you park your car in a spot that's going to prevent somebody from entering their driveway, or you park on the footpath, or if you block the road, you can be pretty sure that Cheshire Police are either going to tow your car away if it really is causing a major problem, or you're going to get a fixed penalty notice. That's what's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, and the police are there every day. And obviously, I think one day this week on Irish, when they were sunny, they came in the morning, they came in the afternoon, and they were even, one of the other issues we have, and it's really unfortunate for the people that live by the lake, is we have people turning up at 10:30 at night.
What?
Blowing up paddle boards and out for a midnight swim. And we have, one of the problems we have to deal with as a council, we have people organising their business or organising their groups to come down. So they're having events on our land without permission, without insurance. But what's really annoying for the residents is this is 10:30. Some of these people will have school children who they're trying to get to sleep for the next day, and it's sort of getting a little bit out of control. And I think one of the issues obviously is the public right of way through the footpath, and obviously one of the things we're looking at is with Cheshire East is whether we can move that to maybe the side of the lake, so down down the hedge where we are, so that we can secure the lake at night, so that, the residents and children can get some sleep.
It's a sad situation, isn't it, that we've got to go through all this, but nevertheless it sounds as if you certainly have some solutions in hand at the moment once the parking restrictions have been developed. But in the meantime, listen, again, a warning on behalf of all the people at Pickmere. Just start behaving in more of a socially respectable manner. People have to live their lives. If you guys go down there, you're parking your cars on footpaths, people with prams can't get past. If you're blocking people into their driveway, people have a right to go about their ordinary business. And in the extreme, if you're preventing safety vehicles, either ambulances, police, or fire engines from getting to the lake if there's an emergency, then you're going to be liable. And certainly, if you park, if any antisocial parking will undoubtedly, because the police are there every day, it will undoubtedly be met with the strong arm of the law, and in real cases, your car's going to be towed away, and you're going to have to pay to get it out of the pound. Ewan, anything you'd like to say in conclusion to the people out there?
No, I think only what I've said. I mean, if we mentioned the tranquility of Pickmere Lake, that's why a lot of us move there. I think as a village, we're not against people coming and sharing that with us. We're not. It's not a NIMBY thing. But I think particularly on sunny days, you're not going to come down and enjoy any tranquility of Pickmere Lake. You're going to be there with hundreds, maybe thousands of people. It's not pleasant. There are no facilities, and you could end up with not having a car to get home in. So I would just say take that into consideration.
Okay, absolutely. So they are for start acting with a bit of respect for people. Okay, I know sometimes there isn't much being shown by people, but people deserve to live their lives in a decent way. So please, if you're thinking of going to Pickmere, think again, because it's not going to be the idyllic waterside break that you envisage. There's probably going to be about 1,000 other people there at the same time. So listen, have a bit of respect for people. Ewan, thanks for coming into the programme. I'm sure you'll keep us informed with what goes on. We hope that the parking limitations come into force as soon as possible, and that the people of Pickmere will then be able to go back to some kind of decency of living conditions. Thanks for coming in.